University of the West Indies. And we welcome you, I think because, yes, all right, I was just doing that. We welcome you to We Outside, the Carnival series presented by the LCCS at the University of the West Indies. That is the Department of Literary, Cultural and Communication Studies, in association with the DCFA, the Department of Creative and Festival Arts. And we are located under the salmon tree. Come join us under the salmon tree. Yes, you can make some noise and try and get some people here. Woo! My prepared remarks at a beautiful sunny afternoon. It's now alive. It's now a windswept, overcast, lovely, cool Sunday, Friday afternoon. Come join us here. There's no rain. Come and join us here. So, what you can also do, those of you who are online, feel free to join in the discussion by sending in any particular comments that you have, questions, because in a moment, I'll be introducing the moderator as well as the panelists. However, to get us into the festive mood, we're going to introduce Kian Batiste, who is a professional panelist, recent graduate of the Department of Creative and Festival Arts at the University of the West Indies. And I'm not going to tell you the composer. In fact, I'll probably tell you afterwards what this song is. If you don't know, well, then you have missed Carnival. Here we go. Kian, join us, please. Thank you, Kion. I was just wondering if it was wrong to tell a group of academics, make some noise. But please make some noise for Kion again. Yeah. I was a little worried just now because just when I was thinking nobody was moving, people on my right started to move and set the... Yeah. Others were more internal, but we understand. But we are, so it's UV inside, but UV outside. So thank you, Kion. So this afternoon we present the third and final installment of our Carnival series, the sort of who, what, why, and where are we going with our beloved Carnival. Over the last 2 weeks, we had invited panels of experts to discuss Carnival, and this afternoon we continue with the same. In our first installment, we asked who owns Carnival. Last week, we discussed Carnival as love and liberatory practice. This concluding week, we discussed restating the Carnival's place in society. Our evening's discussion will be moderated by Dr. Suzanne Burke, and she will introduce the panelists. And Dr. Burke, a little bit about her, in case you don't know, probably most of us here know, but I think our listening audience does not, and they need to know. Suzanne Burke is a cultural studies scholar whose work employs the domain of culture as a pathway to Caribbean socio-economic transformation. Her research focuses on Caribbean culture, carnival industries and culture, creative entrepreneurship, and management, as these relate to the development and evaluation of cultural policies and programs. She's a dedicated teacher, yes, who employs radical pedagogies to create new epistemologies about cultural studies, arts-based practice, and creative entrepreneurship. She has worked extensively with a wide cross-section of public sector enterprises, civil society organizations, and private agencies in the areas of strategic planning, human resource development, policy analysis, cultural sector mapping and planning, as well as audience impact analysis. It is our distinct pleasure and honor to introduce our moderator for UE Outside, Dr. Suzanne Burke. Please welcome her.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Murray. Good afternoon, everybody. We're under the cool salmon tree, and it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our esteemed panel. So I will start with, on my extreme right, John Arnold. John Arnold holds a bachelor's degree in industrial management from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, a professional certificate in event management from the George Washington University, a certificate in hospitality, sales, and marketing from the American Hotel and Motel Association, a certificate in harmony and arrangement from the Berklee College of Music in Boston, an executive MBA from the Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business, and he's currently pursuing a PhD in cultural studies at the UW St. Augustine. Clearly, he'd like to study. Mr. Arnold is the holder of a Hummingbird Medal Gold for his work in culture. He has immense experience working in culture, in education, event management, and tourism. John is the past CEO of the Tobago Festivals Commission Limited and currently operates as the chairman of the Music TT Board of Directors. He holds director positions on the boards of Creative TT, the Copyright Organization of Trinidad and Tobago, and the Equal Opportunities Commission. But perhaps John is best known for his role as the artistic director of the Signal Hill Alumni Choir. Ashu. Welcome, John. You recognize yourself there? Next, sitting next to John is another esteemed panel member, Mr. George Singh. And those of us who have been involved in Carnival for any length of time know Mr. Singh well. George has been involved in event management since 1999. His expertise covers all aspects of conference and meeting planning, trade show management, and concert management. In 1996, he started the Chutney Soca Monarch, which provides a platform for Indo-Caribbean music and culture in the carnival landscape. This event has grown, and today stands out as one of the signature events in the carnival season. The Chutney Soca Monarch has created opportunities for producers, artists, prop builders, dancers, writers, and has consistently opened the door for those already involved in carnival culture. George Singh has been directly involved in large-scale galas and quality events. He's also one of the few event professionals in Trinidad and Tobago who has created both business and entertainment events with varying budgets and audiences. His reputation as an event manager with the capacity to mix different aspects of business and culture is well known. His client list includes government ministries, energy companies, major corporations, and media houses. And his events have touched and influenced hundreds of companies over the last 34 years. Welcome, George. Beat that. Next to George, we have Jaime Bagoo. Jamie's career is steeped in the cultural and creative industries. Her passionate advocacy for culture and local heritage has seen her obtain postgraduate qualifications in arts and cultural enterprise management, as well as cultural heritage management. These two areas enhance her undergraduate degree in the Carnival Arts from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine. She is also certified in intellectual property with a focus on traditional knowledge and traditional cultural expressions from the World Property Intellectual Property Organization. She uses this training in her IP consultancy to assist traditional knowledge bearers in adapting to the digitized world. She has worked on several policies. I have done that with her, including those on local content quota, arts and crafts, arts and culture. Ms. Bagoo has served as a carnival adjudicator for over 20 years and has experience in producing mass. She was a member of the committee appointed to review the adjudication criteria for the different competitions under the purview of the National Carnival Commission. Most recently, she has served as chairperson on the committee that reviews competition results. Currently, her focus includes activities towards the promulgation of the National Inventory for Intangible Cultural Heritage in partial fulfillment of the obligations and mandate given to government upon signing various UNESCO conventions on culture. She also works with the Trinidad and Tobago Carnival Museum and is the director of Crowns and Sashes, a pageant training academy. Welcome, Jaime. And of course, to my nearest right, we have Selvon Mr. Shack Noel, who hails from the modest but culturally vibrant southern borough of Siparia. Well, I'm from there too, so you have a partner, right? He is one of the most authentic, dominant, revolutionary modern voices of Trinidad and Tobago's indigenous calypso art form, with his own unique, energetic blend and flavor, which he describes as Kai Soca. In the Kaiso Gael, he's regarded by many as the quintessential Kaiso rebel and has professionally been involved in music and performing arts since 1997. His involvement in music on a semi-professional level began almost a decade prior to that in 1990, when he first joined his band as a guitarist, and then he later moved on to become the band's professional bass player. Since 2001, he has been a composer and recording artist, working alongside many aspiring and seasoned calypsonians here in Trinidad and Tobago, and also in territories such as St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, Grenada, and the US, where he helps them to craft their Kaiso compositions for competitions and recordings. Mr. Shack has been a 10-time National Calypso Monarch semifinalist and a 5-time Dimash Gra Calypso Monarch finalist. Among the titles he has earned thus far are the South Central Calypso History Month Monarch in 2012, categories Political Monarch in 2014, as well as the San Fernando Calypso Monarch on 4 occasions, no mean feat. The NACC nominated and listed his Kaiso compositions, Rogue and Bois, among the top 20 calypsos for 2010 and 2014, respectively. Another of his songs, Generation Next, was listed as one of the 40 best calypsos of 2016. Mr. Shack also provides tutelage and workshops in calypso composition and stage performance and presentation at the primary and secondary school level. He is the co-founder of Trinfinity Arts, an alliance of practitioners from different artistic realms, through which they produce and promote events, combining and utilizing their various artistic disciplines to address socially prevalent and relevant issues. Welcome, Mr. Shack. So I'm analog girl. I don't have a tablet to be scrolling, yes? So I am paper-based, yes? So you will have to bear with me as I transition from one set of papers to the next. So folks, once again, give a round of applause to our panel. So I wanted to start off with something. Me and Carnival have a contract. Every year we just go hard like nail. I on the road with truck bigger than humpback whale. So take a thumb with calendar and just mark that date. Because when you see them 2 days come around, this is my time to jump out, my time to run about, my time to get something and get on bad in this long route. Moving with my soldiers, we don't move with no Cub Scouts, whining on all them girls from east, west, north, and south. Is we day, is we day, is we day. It's we day, it's we day, is we day. So, folks, today we are here to discuss our collective contract with Carnival, as Ian Alvarez describes in this year's hit song, Carnival Contract. The potential of Carnival to open up spaces for us to jump out and run about, to affirm selfhood through the processes of discovery and recovery are well established in the Carnival canon. However, a cursory examination of the current state of Carnival calls into question the identifications and belongingness that Alvarez so poignantly exhorts in the song. Is we day, is we day, is we day. So one wonders, who is the we to which he refers? And more importantly, is the statement really a question? Is we there? And if it's not we there, whose day is it? So like all contracts, the terms of reference must be renegotiated when the contracts and the context change, such as when the symbolic and financial values ascribed to the engagement shift, when new players and technologies are introduced and traditional ones are marginalized, when old forms of power are coalescing and consolidating in new ways to reclaim or retain their positions. Noted Caribbean scholar Rex Netherford articulated the possibilities of festival-led development in Nunley and Bettenheim's seminal work entitled Caribbean Festival Arts. Here, Netherford asserts that carnivals in particular act as, open quotes, catalysts to different dimensions of Caribbean post-colonial development, whether in nurturing the creative arts, in planning strategies for social and economic development, in sharpening the articulation of geopolitical and political nationalism and independence. These festivals promote regional and national unity. Close quotes. Plenty to think about. So we begin our conversation by interrogating Alvarez's assertion in the context of Netherford's positioning of festivals in Caribbean development, by first asking each of our panelists about their individual contract with Carnival. So we begin. What does Carnival mean to you? What is your contract with Carnival? Mr. Shack, you want to start?
Well, first of all, I wanna say, thanks for having me as part of this panel, and you put me alongside some people that I'll be much more minded to listen and learn from. But that being said, Carnival, when you ask that question, it seems kind of twofold to me in terms of the significance of carnival to me. And I have to think about that in the context of kind of what it ought to be, right? But for me, carnival is a multifaceted, complex, very spiritual ritual. And when I say multifaceted and complex, I could kind of boil it down to the whole process to three major elements, which I would class as firstly confrontation and contestation, and then cleansing, and culminating in what I would call reawakening and renewal, right? And we're just doing this first thing, so I don't know how granular I could get, but in terms of contestation and confrontation, that in itself I see as a kind of real paradoxical thing. As a few things in the carnival are, but I think the confrontation for me in carnival really manifests itself in the masquerade. And the reason why I say it's paradoxical is because we masquerade by masking, but the masking seems to be to unmask, right? So we kind of mask ourselves in all our fears, all our hang-ups, all our taboos, you know, all the things that outside of that space and time would be considered undesirable, unacceptable. And we mask ourselves in these things with a view to confronting them, to navigating them, to understanding them. And for me, that is a really important part of that is a significant part of the thing, because it's about, at least in my mind, is about grappling with the things that either have a hold over us or immersing ourselves in the things that we may otherwise outside of the carnival space really want to be. But we know that outside of the carnival space don't allow we that leeway to be them things, right? So whether it's about conquering something about it within ourselves individually, or whether it's about putting it on front sheet and center stage so that whoever would deem it undesirable could see that this is who he really is. And maybe in that, therein is their confrontation to a different level of understanding and acceptance, right? And so that's why I say paradoxical. But for me, in that process is where the cleansing comes. Because now it's almost like you're divesting yourself of whatever the hang-ups are, whether they emanate from within oneself or they're external. You know, you're divesting yourself of those hang-ups, because that is the one time and space when you ain't had a care about what that is. If it's a fear, you ain't freed it. That's the time when you had to free it, you could confront it head on. And if is a criticism, you ain't really have to care about none of that either. So you're divesting yourself of all these hang-ups. And to me, that is where, as I say, the cleansing and the divestment, divesting oneself of all those hang-ups come. And out of that now is where the catharsis for renewal, reawakening, regeneration come in. Because now you're culminating out of that, you're coming out of that with either a greater understanding you feared to tackle, to be, you know? And so it sets you in a place where you're better able to navigate And that's the importance of the carnival too, because the carnival in that space informing you about how to continue to navigate that thing outside of the carnival space, right? So that for me is the significance of the carnival in my mind.
Right, so that's your contract. It's about real self-discovery and recovery, unmasking and masking to find self. Jamie, what's your contract with Carnival?
It's home. What I love most about Carnival is the fact that it's participatory. You can choose to participate or not to participate. I participate in almost everything, except competing on stage.
But you
I jump on
adjudicate.
stage.
But you adjudicate.
But I will adjudicate. Yes? So, similar to what Mr. Shaq has said, yes, it's about confrontation, it's about belonging, identity. And the mere notion, our carnival is so special in a way that choosing not to participate is a way of participating too. Yeah? People don't realize that. People don't take that into consideration. And we have a level of openness. We have a level of community. We have a strong sense of community when this is around. That's why I said my first thing is it's home, because that's where I feel I belong. Not just because I'm from Belmont and I can hear everything home every night, right? But every person in our society, in our country, can choose what they want to be at Carnival, mask or unmask, or they could just choose to disappear. As simple as that is for me, yeah.
I say that Carnival allows you to be what you don't want to be, or that but it also allows people to hide in plain sight, and it allows people to come out in the road. So different things, right? So this notion of home is important, right? And that sense of belongingness. George, what does it mean? What's your contract with Carnival?
So good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. Carnival for me, when I first got involved in 1996, was purely from a business perspective. I got involved to make money. That was the bottom line. And I didn't hide that fact that I got involved at that point to make money. As I went along, we started with Chutney Soca Monarch. And as I got deeper into the culture and the interaction with artists, I realized the impact that one competition that we do, Chutney Soca Monarch, and every other competition, right, has on the lives of these artists. I made some notes, and I'll just tell you what I think Carnival means to me. Carnival is a platform for development and the opportunities that each year presents. Carnival represents the ongoing annual development of our cultural industry. It represents for me a season for development and growth of the Caribbean music industry. It represents an expression of the creative mind, the coming together of people, the fusion of cultures and music. And basically, it represents unity. You would never see at any other time of the year. It's the one time of the year that you see everyone coming together. And you see it in the music, you see it among the artists, that collaboration and camaraderie that exists. And it's a beautiful experience, and it has really made me a better person. And even though some years you wonder why you continue, when you look at what's happening within the industry and the role that you are playing as an individual in what you're doing, you really just have that, drive to keep going. And this is what Carnival represents to me.
So in other words, you are underscoring Nettleford's position. So it is a platform for all of these things, right? John, from a Tobago perspective.
Yeah, well, I see we have business, we had artists, we had, for me, I think There are three places I would place myself. I've been so involved in more administrative, and that I'm sure gonna have a lot of legs when we get deeper in the talk. The first thing I think is that Carnival represents both a spirit and release because I see it all the time and every year. And I think my sister talked about that, or was it Shaq? Shaq was talking about how you get to a place where you literally forget who you are, do your thing, release, and get back into your body. Um, the second phase that Carnival would mean to me would be the fact that this is an indigenous festival that has morphed into a hybrid festival for me. So that I think we're struggling with the fact that the indigenous, we have to enjoy ourselves, celebrate. We do heritage every year. It's our thing. We want to do that. But people are still clamoring. Maybe we need to move it from that to a tourism event, a tourist center event. And I think Carnival now has those two positions. The indigenous that we have to celebrate, and the fact that it is also a tourist center, that we need to make money, we need to bring people, we have to have it experiential. And the last thing for me that Carnival, that's because I work in the intellectual property part of it, but the music, I think the music of Trinidad and Tobago is probably one of the few anti-gravity music that exists. Our music, there's no way people are down. It's always trying to get in another. Yeah. So I call it anti-gravity. There's another music, I call it gravity, but I won't say that here because I would make bacchanal in this place. All right. So those are my three, those are my three positions. Yeah. In terms of what it means.
So we've kind of gotten a real nice smorgasbord of things, right? So for people, it's the sacred ritual, it's the ability to be yourself or find yourself, negotiate your way. It's an opportunity to make money. It's an opportunity to bring about national unity. It's also an opportunity to look at development from both the social and the economic point of view. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the tensions in Carnival, right? So we have, the aspirations that we all have. I know what my contract with Carnival is, right? And I could tell you that in the past couple of years, me and Carnival quarreling, right? We quarreling real bad, and it's not good, right? For that, good. So there's a sense of what the contract is, what you want it to be, what you aspire to be, and then what it is or what it is becoming, right? So I want us to explore and excavate that gap now, right? So in terms of what we want, what we envision, but what is happening. Let's talk a little bit about that and the things that perhaps make you want to, as Bunji says, renew the contract or don't renew the contract next year. So you say, see me next year, I ain't going Panorama. I can't do it no more. Or I'm not doing this anymore. So you break the contract. What are the things that we see? Let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll try to kind of figure out how we find our way back. So, Chuck, you want to start? What wants you to, what you're breaking the contract with?
I have found myself breaking the contract and literally breaking the contract already, because and I'm dealing with from my perspective, right? In 2023, I made the decision to stay away from participating in the tent. Calypso tent, right? For people who don't know, I'm a Kaisunian, I'm regarded as a Kaisunian. But just as in some of the other spaces, you start to see things manifesting in a kind of way that pulling you in some different directions, right? From whatever your moorings are. And I kind of explain what my moorings are, where Carnival was concerned. So that even inside of my Kaiso space, I was seeing a plethora of things that that really had me at conflict with this thing that I love so much. I also recognize that post-COVID exacerbate that, right? Because for me, what happened in that COVID period was that we were all forced to refocus on the brass tacks of this thing. Why? You see, the minute we was in a position where we couldn't do them thing, we was forced to analyze now, based on the fact that we couldn't do them, why they're important to do. Why Kaiso? Why pan? Why calendar? Why mass? And despite the fact that the lockdown and the various measures kept carnival from officially being presented and celebrated in the way it was, you saw individuals now and groups of individuals recognizing the necessity of that ritual and to find a way to perform that ritual regardless, right? So even you would have see people like my partner Omari who in the background find a savannah close to him and go through his ritual, right? And put it on social media for everybody to know that COVID regulations, whoever can't stop me from my ritual. And I think each and every one of us who engages with carnival in whatever way, found ways to do it. So I turned my living room into my personal Kaiso tent. Right? And so, as I say, it forced it to go back to the brass tacks and the roots of why we just do all of this and what is the significance of it. And there was a hope and a hopefulness in that for when you see they open the gate again for we to really do this thing, is like we reattach ourselves to some moorings that could help us now navigate in a different way and shake off some of the not so desirable things that started to present themselves pre-COVID. And that, that hope didn't really manifest as it was appearing to be when that opportunity presented itself. So I think it creates now, it brings squarely into focus the chasm between where's the real root element of the thing as opposed to what we're being presented with. Because what you find was almost a race back to the status quo in many respects. While to a lesser degree, there were some people saying, but like myself, oh, you forget we didn't have this just the other day, or what? we lost all of this just the other day, you know. And so, we really going back there? We're really going back there, we're going back there, so, you know what I mean? So, it was recognizing that, observing that, figuring out how to navigate that. And then, of course, they give you a taste, and then they give you the mother, right? And the taste and the mother. So in between the taste and the mother now, is trying to figure out where the taste is and how motherly the mother is for me personally. And that culminated for me in 2023, me deciding personally, listen, as at least in my wheelhouse, the way this thing manifesting and way it heading, it ain't sitting well in my spirit, and I need to at least break the contract a little bit. Let me reassess this whole thing and let me decide if I want to re-engage with this, and when I re-engage in how I want to re-engage with it.
Good. Jamie.
I'm going to tack on to something he said, hope. So every year there's a hope that there's something different, something better, something improved, something new, that they listened to the comments from before, that they listened to the advice that was given, the advice that was sought out actually. And that's what helps you keep renewing this contract. basically. For those who are participating on a spiritual level, for those who are there on a business level, that is what we see, and that is where it is right now. It is not where we want it to be, definitely isn't. But we're always thinking, hey, yeah, next year will be better. Yeah, next year we get to do this. Next year we get to do that. Hope. Yeah.
I'll come back to that in a bit. That's interesting. George.
Hope is an interesting word, eh? I'm going to talk about hope too. But before I talk about hope, I want to just say that instead of renewing the contract, what we have been doing is revising the contract every year, right? And the reason we have to revise the contract is because when we started in 1996, and when you think of from 1996 to now, there have been several generational changes in the market that we go in at. So you had the baby boomers, you have the Gen Zs, you have the Gen X, and I don't know what other gen you have, right? But every generational change that we went through, it's a different way that people interact with Carnival and interact with the events, which is why I think so many things have been changing inside of Carnival, and sometimes people can't keep up with it. So what we have been doing in our little space is revising the contract, right? Hope. I'm going to talk about COVID. For someone involved in the entertainment industry, we got shut down. And when I say shut down, right, zero. So I have a bunch of friends. This is just a little story, I'll tell you all. Very wealthy guys who have hardwares and tile place and this and that and whatever else. And they got shut down for 2 weeks. And I went to a little lime they had. And them fellas and them was bawling, oh God, I got dead, this, that. I say, oh, they get shut down for 2 weeks and they're bawling. I shut down for 2 years at zero, right? And one of the things that I recognized more than anything else was that I needed, so before I say that line, artists in particular were affected in a big way. They were depressed. They didn't know what to do. They felt, a lot of them were going into themselves, and I saw it. And I felt the need to instill hope into the artistic community, at least the community that I dealt with. And we never stopped short in Soca Market. In 2021, we did the final at Sapa, right? I did the semi-final at my home. And I remember the police came, right? And I also had Faris, Rudal Munilal, and I can't remember the other person, and some media took pictures, and it ended up in the newspapers. And they wanted to know how it is they were having this function in the middle of COVID. And look at who there, right? But it was in my home. But I went to the police before the function, and I told them I was having this function. And the head of police in South told me, he said, well, George, why you really come to tell me this? You having this thing in your house. I can't come in your house and do anything. So we actually did it there. We did the final in SAP. And we continued through COVID. And it brought a level of hope to artists, that they had something to look forward to at all times. So my take is revise the contract. We keep revising the contract.
Well, I want to talk about the Tobago conundrum that exists with the February Carnival and the October Carnival, because it's a very interesting story. Because yeah, because and I was in the bowels of it, so I could talk. My contract ended last December, so I'm free to talk. So yeah, but you know how the thing goes. Yeah. But being honest here, the people who enjoy February Carnival in Tobago are the people who like carnival in Tobago. They like it relaxed. However they like it so. But they want to practice it. George Deacon want to come out with his sailor band. This one want to play Jamolassi, that one want to play Blue Devil. Everybody have the place. However, Tobago is the only place where the government of the island will give you money as a grant to play. And that is because we have to incentivize as many persons to play mass. Because people, really and truly, to be quite honest, Tobago, unlike Trinidad, is not, I want to be careful in the words. Going to Tobago, I want to make sure I go back. Yeah, Tobago is not so, I would say, heavily supportive of carnival as carnival. As a matter of fact, the people who like carnival in Tobago, where do they go? They go to Trinidad, all right? So the indigenous people want to enjoy carnival at February. And we're in a little conundrum where the idea of trying to de-emphasize that carnival and now try to make the October carnival the carnival is not going to work for several reasons. The October carnival is probably similar to the Jamaica carnival, which is we're putting on something to bring tourists to the island. We want to bomb tourism, want to have more heads in bed, la, 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 right? And so it becomes a show. So you won't believe this. The people who are taking place in the carnival in February, all the band leaders, do not take part in October. And the people who take part in October do not take part in February. So you have a real serious issue there, because it really comes down to the fact that the model for October is that you will not get prizes. There are no prizes. This is all showcase. Come and play a mass, enjoy yourself, and let tourists pay their money. The model is to try and imitate the model you all have here, where you be a businessman, put out a band, let people pay their money. But of course, Tobagonians don't really spend like that. So the psychographics are a little different. And so I think that conundrum I'm just talking there, that has not been solved yet. And so that's why, from a policy perspective, I'm really, really strong, because I really feel that that's one of the most lacking things that we have in this country. And the other one is, I sit on it, which is Dr. Keatner's quote, that the IDD problem, the implementation deficit disorder, that is what makes us sick in this place. We have all the plans, we have all the policies, we have all the strat plans, we have all the guidelines, we have everything. But somehow, boy, I don't know, we can't move. Anyway, I hope I'm not too contradictory there. Yeah.
Not at all. Nice jumping off point first. So I want us to talk a little bit about two things. I want us to look at this notion of hope, right? And at the same time, the notion of the stasis that we all kind of experiencing, right? So that inside of the hope, Jamie is saying, well, every year you think it'll get better next year, right? Which means that things are remaining the same, but you still continue to hope, right? So we have to talk a little bit about where that comes from, right? And then I also want us to talk about the tension that John pointed to, right? So that there is we are not, bereft of planning and visions, and we have all that. We have all that, and I have been involved in that too, yes? But then there seems to be something that stops us from moving from the vision, what we know is the potential. I now hate potential because of carnival. I hate that word, right? Because you see all the economic potential and the social potential and whatever. And still, we are not converting that potential into real developmental energy. We haven't been able to do it.
Doc, can I just remember a little piece that I forgot to say? One little thing. I think and this has to be addressed, the communication between the state agencies and the stakeholders. I can't talk for Trinidad, but in Tobago, that needs to be addressed. Communication is not the way it's supposed to be. It should be they downstairs really telling you how to make this thing work. I think that's going to work better than people sitting here and saying, do that. And so I think that we need to address that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to get us talking about those different things. So we're talking about the gap, right? The implementation gap, and trying to figure out what's the cause. So I wanted to just read something, and then we'll start to talk about the various stakeholders, right? So we acknowledge that carnival is not one-dimensional, but it represents a myriad of meanings to different people. We talked about that. So I'm suggesting that there are a couple of power structures, three maybe, operating within carnival. The carnival of business interests is characterized by the forces of capital and their systems of support, right? Its main concern is with creating and exploiting the cycles of cultural production and consumption that come from the festival. The carnival of the state involves the mechanisms of government that are used to promote, mediate, and police the festival as a crucible for national identity, tourism development, income generation, as well as a vehicle for political patronage. Let's not put water in our mouth. The carnival of the people involves the producers and consumers of carnival who make meanings from the festival by repeating, recreating, reinterpreting, rejecting what is put in the festival space. And these three forces operate in the carnival ecology in different ways, in different permutations, right? That move along a continuum of cooperation, co-optation, opposition, or autonomous coexistence. So the question I want us to kind of look at now is, what is the view of each of you of each of these power structures? What should the state be doing? What should the business sector be doing? And what should people? And of course, we know people is not a homogeneous group, right? So consumers, producers, etc. But what is their role in restating carnival? So John talked about administration and policy. Who's responsible for that? And who's responsible for keeping people's feet to the fire? So the role of the state, the role of the business sector, the role of people. So let's take it. Who wants to start? George, I think, wanted to start. George, yeah.
So I just want to say one thing, and maybe we could jump off from there, right? I think that, and I'll take a little piece from what John said just now. The problem is we have all the information, we have all the people, we have all the studies, everything. Money. Money is the basic problem. And state needs to provide that money. Now, a lot of people may disagree with that, right? But there's another issue why the state may not necessarily want to provide that money. And that issue is trust. That if they provide that money, I'm just using John's name, if they provide that money to John, they get John $5 million to do Tobago Carnival, will he utilize the $5 million in an appropriate manner? But I think the problem is money. I think that the investment that the state has in Carnival at the moment is too low. They need to put more money in. They need to recognize their role in Carnival, which is a very important role. And another thing that was interesting that John said is that Tobago people may not necessarily have the money to play mass. And it's not that they don't want to play mass. They want to play mass. They want to participate, but they cannot afford to participate. So why not pay for them to participate? I don't see an issue in that. Get them out there, but provide the opportunity for them and make the festival attractive to bring the tourists. We are creating a show. Carnival is a showpiece for Trinidad and Tobago. And that was what I saw when I got involved in Carnival, was a platform that Carnival provided, I should say. The platform that it provided and the financial amount of money is that circulating inside of Carnival, right? And I think that is important. But the state plays a very, very critical role. Now, the state is playing a critical role already, but I think they need to play a bigger role and get more involved.
So money. I just want to read some figures there. For 2024, the allocation was 141 million TT. For 2023, it was 147 million TT, right? The return on investment for this carnival 2024, you had tourists spending 634 million. So the benefit to cost is 4-1, which is nothing to sneeze at, right? So I just want to put that out there as we're talking about money. Go ahead, Jamie.
Right, no, and kind of a response to Mr. Singh. The state already is playing a big part. And I'm not here to defend the state either, make that clear, because they do have their issues. But I think the role of the state really is to create the enabling environment, to create the capacity to help develop that aspect of it so that we can inject it into carnival. However, the commercial entities that you see advertising throughout Port of Spain, throughout the savannah for the entire carnival season, on radio, on television, wherever else they put their ads, they are the ones who you need to go after because they need to inject more. And they need to inject more, not just for the carnival season. You know why? They need to help the state. The state gives seed funding. That's what I think the state really should do. And that's what they're doing. To an extent, right? But the commercial entities, those same commercial entities throughout the year, where are those same big budgets for cultural and arts programming, for developmental programming, for capacity building?
So I just want to
Private sector.
So I just
Private
want to
sector, yeah.
So I just want to say one thing. I hear you, right? I still think the investment from state is too small, right? However, these private companies that you're talking about, I don't know if I should call it.
No,
Maybe
don't
I
call
should.
names. Don't call names.
I wouldn't call names, right? No names. So we have hundreds of people, thousands, or hundreds of people that are doing events, right? That go into the same pool, the same small pool of people that you are talking about, those big conglomerates that are bombarded with proposals, from hundreds of proposals, right, that they have to facilitate. Now, that's one. You will see people advertising, we for the culture, we for this, we for that. And when you go to them, they want to know how much rum you're selling. So what is this about? Is it about how much rum you're selling? Or is it about what you're supporting? As far as I am concerned, these big entities put up big facades around the city that looks pretty, but nothing else. That's all it represents.
They don't look that pretty, yeah?
And while I'm sitting here, I'm also making sure that I structure my words in my head because I know we're on YouTube. I don't know, all of you here, and tell me if I'm wrong. Somebody asked me a question when jazz was cancelled for this year. I still don't understand. How can you post-COVID do a jazz festival last year, got the biggest media support, return on marketing, everything. The whole tourism sector said hallelujah. And then the next day you say blanket. Here's my question. And you all tell me if I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, well, I don't think I'm wrong. When they fix these roads, do you quarrel? When they put medicines in the hospital, do you make noise? No. When they give you housing. For me, I don't understand why every time it's culture or tourism spending, there's a question.
Always, yeah.
I don't ever get it. I don't get a question on any of the other sectors, whether it's energy, housing, whatever. Every time they spend on culture, there's a question about if it's too much, are we getting back on it? There's some things you don't get back on it. Everybody knows that all over the world, right? There's some things you're not going to get back. But what it does, there's several other multiplying effects that you benefit from. And we saw it in jazz for years. Clico used to spend $51 million. They never got that back. But in terms of Tobago, we benefited. And there's another point I wanted to make. Doc, you asked about the three sectors. The first one was the business interests. I think they are critical. In places like Tobago, we don't have a corporate sector, so we still have to depend on Trinidad corporate sector. In terms of the state, I think the state has a massive role, a massive role. I was making a point to Doc about the carnival in Bolivia, for example. They have a cultural policy that they live by. They literally live by. I don't know, you all know Bolivia has the Incas and they have a lot of archaeological treasures and so on. And they actually have the police that literally capture consignments at the port with people leaving, what they call art piracy, right? Because they're serious about the culture. And that's the same approach they take to the carnival, where they are serious about that. And for me, I think the cultural policy, the state has a big role. I have no problem with the next sector, which are the stage actors, the dancers. They are always ready. They are always ready. If Biden is to come tomorrow on a state visit, all you know is you get the call. Steel band, baba bap. Jessa, get so-and-so ready. So-and-so get so-and-so quiet. So-and-so, they are ready. They're always working. So I'm not worried about that. That's my 2 cents.
Right. What about the role of the people?
Right. Do the people know what they want? That's my question.
Well,
Because
they
the people
vote with their
really need
feet.
to.
They vote with their feet. If you're
You
fed
sure?
us,
Or
well,
they're fed that.
right?
Or they're told this is what you have to choose from, so choose.
Right.
That is what you take it. That is what you're getting.
Right.
Right?
But what about Shaq's point that I think in COVID people became more acutely aware of what they wanted and what they didn't want?
And they forgot 9 days later.
Right. I take that. Right. So choice making is based on, but that's what I say. It's what's in the market, right? So people could think that this is what I want. I could reject it. I could renegotiate it. I could say I'm taking this path, but I'm not taking this path, etc. Right? So are the people kind of empowered to make the decisions they need to make about events and those kinds of things? What are the voices? Where do we find voice to say we reject that, we accept that, tweak that a little bit? What do people do, and how do people do that?
I want to come back to a couple of things I hear before, right? But to answer that question in terms of where we find voice, I think that will always be challenging just by the nature of the fact that carnival is a catchment that really kind of amplifies our divergent multicultural views, right? So that while the carnival is a space, and we just talk about the unity that the carnival does provide, the stratifications that exist inside of it is a set of different voices, right? It's a microcosm of what we just be dealing with every day. So it's a set of different voices that speaking from different perspectives and all the stratifications. So even if the fine voice is voices, is a cacophony of voices, right? So it comes back to the question I put in that question. She asked, what do the people want? Do they know what they want? And even if they know what they want, how do we reconcile all these different voices clamoring for all these different things to manifest? Yeah, but I just want to jump back because some very interesting things come out there, and I just want to use some words that I hear, right? Because I hear one person say funding, while the next person say investment. I hear one person say policy, and you know these words now. Now I might be the worst person to talk to about where's the role of business and them things. Now don't get me wrong, I understand the importance of it and I see it, But from where I sit, I do business about whether tourists come and they ain't come and them thing. Now I understand the importance of it, But for me, carnival first and foremost primarily have to be for we. And when we start to understand what carnival is for we and to we and how we representing that, the people will come. Now, in order for us to understand that and to marry all these divergent perspectives, and next word I hear policy. You see, policy and systems, somehow we afraid them thing, we don't like them thing. The question asks, where is the gap between the hope and the implementation? Is the reluctance to actually plug in them policies and them systems. We don't like to deal with them thing. And the reason why, in my mind, we don't like to deal with them thing is because policy and system is unplug individual and ego and who is boss and who subordinate and so and who could decide how and in which direction things could go and how money could flow and all these kind of things. I understand the importance of money, as George said, and I get it. I don't expect him to not come from that perspective, right? No, I don't mean it because he was very clear at the start of how and why he get in to carnival. And even though other things would have manifested to him on the journey, that is his ethos. And we can't vex with that because that's important. But what I am saying is, from the state, yes, money important, but it's more about facilitating the thing from a number of perspectives, because they didn't say there was given subvention or funding to Point Lisas or to the petrochemical industry and none of them things. There was facilitating the development of them things. There was investing in them things. But somehow, when it's carnival and things of artistic nature, there is one leeway to decide when to interchange the words funding, subvention, and investment. When them want you to be elusively clear on the fact that you have to give them a return, that is when there is delays an investment. Right? But when they want to arbitrarily give you money in terms of when it come and how much come in and all them things, that is the time there's laying, no, hey, this is funding and this is subvention, or they're begging.
So that there's a whole kind of tension, right,
of course,
inside of government in terms of policy. And there's a reluctance also on their part, right, to implement policy.
And that's what I'm saying, because I do believe that policy and system do exist. You know what I mean? Me no scholar, and it have people long before we've been talking these things and all these studies that I sure. All these policies and studies and systems in file somewhere. But implementing them is what not happening, because implement them does knock down all the figureheads. You know what? And all the
what's interesting is, Shaq, everything you said there, I said. Everything you said, I said, right, in another way. Because I do agree, and I did say that indigenous festivals is about we. And tourism is really about people if they want to come, when they come and see. However, you can't get away from the fact that governments, after a while, recognize that this indigenous festival, it could do something. The same thing happened with Blue Food in Tobago. Blue Food started off as a thing with 150 people up in a village. But Blue Food now is 6,000 and 7,000 people. The state took it over now and started to pump money into it, start to market. So now it's not only an indigenous Blue Food festival in the village, it now has a tourism slot because they use it to bring people to the island. So that's why I said, when I use policy, I am talking about a determined, definite decision by government. We are going to do this. Let me just add this. In 2005, when the decision was made to go down festival tourism in Tobago, that's when Jazz started. But before that, there were two other festivals. They started a gospel festival, which was targeting the Bible Belt in Atlanta. They started a drumming international festival. And when they came with the jazz, I'm giving you this is very important. 22,000 had ring bang, which was a disaster, and it became a political nightmare. And the new government didn't want to hear anything about events and bringing festivals. However, a little bet was made by that prime minister and the then secretary. And this is a very interesting history. If you provide me with monies in a rolling plan to market, I can raise the international visitor arrivals in Tobago, right? Up to maybe 80, 90,000. And it happened. I was out in Germany sometimes for 2 weeks, 20 cities, bam, bam. Money was being spent on marketing, right? We had more airlifts. We had Lauder Air, Martin Air, all of them were coming to Tobago. The point I'm making, a policy was developed, a decision was made. This is what we're going to do this, right? And then, so I don't want you to downplay the issue of policy and a plan. It has to be a determined thing. And I'm saying we need, so I think we're saying the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and also I want people to recognize that a policy is also what a government chooses not to do.
Not to do it.
Right? So that even though there's a framework, yes, and they say, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this, not doing something is also the policy. The policy is to leave it open, right? And they're mass play, right? Because I like the fuzziness. I like the grain.
Well, the
because
fuzzy,
I can intervene in the
exactly.
fuzziness.
Control
say,
and
this is what I'm
the
doing.
fuzziness does always benefit some people, right? So.
Right. Right. So we have two questions from our listeners online. The first one, right, has to do, with, again, this notion that government, one of its roles is funding. The question is, who benefits from government funding? Interesting. So when we say the 141 and the 147, these are direct subventions to the NCC, and there's probably another 100 million spent on all kinds of other things like infrastructure and that kind of stuff, right? So who benefits? The infrastructure providers, right? Maybe we need to examine how this money is spent. So when we're talking about government expenditure and when they get up in cabinet and say, Mr. Speaker, this year we're doing what? Who already getting that, right? Going back to Bungie, who's the we? Who is getting that money? And is that an equitable distribution? So how George was saying, well, maybe they should pay people to play, right? Because people want to participate. A lot of people want to participate, but they don't have the money to participate, right? Which is what we talked about 3 weeks ago when Wendell was here, right? So the policy then is who gets the money. So you have money, but who gets it? Is it a renegotiation of that contract, right? In terms of who gets money and not the event planners, the flag people, the chair people, the stage people, the light people, right? Because when you compare what they get to what an artisan would get, perhaps it's different. So let's talk about that a little bit.
The thing about it is, right, is you have to have a stage. You have to have paid for chairs to be here tonight, right? You have to have lighting, you have to have sound. Now, I agree a major part of the money goes into infrastructure, right? Which is why I am saying you need to put more money. Now, the thing about it is that the government at one point had an investment that was close to 200 million, right? Things have gone up. And what did they do? Reduce it by 60 million. Now, my thing is that, Carnival is an investment, and you talk about people, it's an investment in our people. And the extra money that I am clamoring for is really for the artistic community, because that is the heart and soul of what we are about. But of course, the infrastructure is also very important. Right. One other thing about people that I just want to touch on, social media. The worst place. Social
or the
media.
best place, depending on
Social
how you
media is the absolute worst place. But unfortunately, it is important for us, right, to be able to say what we have to say and to say when we having something and where it is, etc., etc. And then you'll have 10,000 people telling you why you shouldn't vote it. So social media has become a serious problem, but it's how you deal with it. So and people tend to stay behind their keyboards, and write all kind of nonsense. So that's another some factor in the whole carnival experience.
Yeah, I really just have to be thinking about how to say what I have to say. So if you and Doc, I like how you did that. You called a number. This is what is invested, and you said what was the multiplier.
Benefit to cost.
Right, benefit to cost. We had two studies done in Tobago, back to back. One by Dr. Nurse and one by Ralph.
Henry, Kyrie.
Right, Kyrie. Right. And these two studies, one was about the feasibility and one was about the viability, funny enough. And one attempted to do a kind of cost benefit analysis of the festival. And there were two things that were striking about those reports. One was they all agreed that this festival had serious multiplier effect. As a matter of fact, they designed a number, a percentage number, that they think can apply to Tobago. And so the data is there that we were on a good path, that this festival had the ability to do this, not that, as one. And the second thing, they made a recommendation that they change the name from Tobago Jazz Experience to a Carry Jazz and Soca Festival. That was the name they actually recommended. Now, the point I want to make is that I think if even we were to say, Doc, that we spent X amount, your question is how much of that really reaches. But I think through the multiplier effect, I think a lot of the artisans, a lot of the other people, they make the hotels, the restaurants, the groceries, the rental cars. I think your question probably mean more in terms of the artists, which comes to the more the competitive thing rather than some of the others. And then, of course, in the area of pan is, all panists now are paid, right? So I think his point is maybe one of those that we probably have to look at. How can we increase the funding? And the way I see it is that the same way you spend on other things, we need to spend on the creative and cultural sector the same way. That's me.
Great. Jamie, you were going to say something? That face says a lot. It's pregnant with thoughts.
Several thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Like John, I want to phrase my words carefully. Okay, and we're back a little bit to something we said earlier about government giving money and trust as being the issue. And I'm kind of going to tie in a couple of things together, right? Just forgive me if it doesn't flow, but it's just what's swirling around in my head. So we said not enacting the policy is a policy in itself.
Mm-hmm.
We said we want them to raise their numbers in terms of what they're putting in. What I think we need to also look at is not, I think there should be a partnership. I think there should be a marriage of what commerce, what private sector, what the government does. Maybe match for dollar or two to what, something like that. Because you cannot have the festivals and you cannot have the carnival and you cannot have things without the talent. When I say talent, I mean the human resource. The people who go up on stage and perform, the people who do decor, the people who make the food, the people who do lighting, you set these, everything like that. You cannot have that. Your events without any of those things. Your graphic artists for your promotions. You need your social media because not only to promote your event, but we also needed to tell our stories. We needed to tell our stories as an individual and as the country, right? So we need all of that together. And to get all of that, you need to build capacity. You need people trained in those areas. You need the managers for the artists because that's a whole other different discussion because that part of entertainment is missing, sorely missing, that middle management part. We have people who are booking agents who call themselves managers.
Correct.
Right? We don't have top road managers and things like that. A few, and when I say a few, I could count them on my two fingers, have entities, as in groups, will have a road manager available for them if they have to go outside and perform outside of our carnival, right? Outside of any diaspora carnival, any festival. I was going to say something and I forget something the other. So, attached to all of that, I think we need to also hold the government beholden to have M&E in place so that they always talk about return on investment when they do decide to invest. But who is doing the monitoring and evaluation to see exactly, to assess what is coming back or what is possible or what is needed or where the new gaps are coming out, opening? Something, what have you said again? The panyards. If we cut some, okay, maybe we can look at the panyards as a model, right? Because you see how it's working for some of them. You have people like Joylanders, you have Exodus, you have Renegades, you have, where else? Help me out. Phase 2, you have
All Stars,
right? Where where the partnership that they have with private entity, private sector, is helping them to develop and to grow and to prosper. And at some point, they will be able to stand on their own. Right now, they get any props for it. But at some point, you would see those very same centers, those centers of community, those centers of development, really and truly, being able to blossom and move further. I think that's it for now.
Right. So I wanted to say, again, going back to this question of how the money is distributed, because let's be real, there's not an infinite pot of money. The pot of money is finite, and governments and private sectors have to make decisions of where they deploy their resources. Right? So again, we have to decide where is the most strategic place to deploy the resource so that it has what John is talking about, the multiplier effect. It has the most effect and impact, right? And so, yes, we need infrastructure, but Jamie touched on some really important things in terms of education and training, in terms of building capacity. And we don't see the same kind, we are concerned about Carnival as an event, which is 2 days or 6 months or whatever, but we're not concerned about Carnival as ways of life and as a ritual and as something that we should be invested in as part of our development part, as Nettleford talks about socio-cultural development. So that there's a role too for the university, but we'll get to that in a bit, right? But also, you sometimes see some people getting money who really don't need money. I say there are a lot of socialist capitalists in Trinidad, right? They are capitalists, but they go and they beg for money with no return on investment. So funding or subvention, and I've seen it, right? So we have to then want them to determine how they're going to deploy the money that they are going to deploy, whether it's 200 million, 250 million, etc. And I want to say, based on this benefit to cost, which is 4-1, that is pretty good, right? When you look at international festivals like at Glastonbury or Coachella or so on, right? Edinburgh is the gold standard, and they are like 10-1, 9-1. So for a small country like ours, a 4-1 is not anything to sneeze at, right? So again, the call for better, more strategic investment, right? I have a question. Should culture be so intimately linked to tourism as we have tied them here today? nice question, and I want to open
Yeah.
up the floor.
So, sorry, Kayla?
No, just stop it. Just stop it.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, there was this debate at the central bank, re-engineering the economics of carnival. One of the things that I know that was themed was this thing about how do you, for sustainable carnival beyond the February, that we have to look at how we link it to tourism, manufacturing, distribution, construction, everything. Of course, with all that I just said there, the one thing we have to throw in the mix there, of course, now is AI, right? We have to put that somewhere inside of all of that. I want to go off on that because I have another story with that. So, to answer the question, yes, for me, the culture exists in terms of us doing what we have to do, but I see that we have taken culture to also address some of the tourism elements. And by the way, this is not only us. We have the same thing away, right? In Kenya, we know the same. They have the Maasai, they do their thing. Yes, there's a part for them where they do that in their own ritual, but they also do it in the tourism sphere, all right? So I do see that there is a big link always between culture and tourism. I'm strong on that.
Same, I'm strong on that because what you come in here to see then, if it's not our culture. So you have to link it. And while I think it comes back to awareness, education, as well, because there are ways you can package your culture, the things that are sacred to you, that are sacred. You could package it so that it doesn't lose that meaning for persons who come from outside, who may not understand true ethos of it.
So, policy. A group of us went to Ghana sometime last year, and we visited the dungeons, right? And it is very clear. So yes, so that is a kind of tourism, but the way that they framed it, you knew you were in sacred space, right? So that everybody fell in line. Well, most everybody, right? But you knew that, this is sacred, and therefore you respect it and you treat with it in a particular way, right? But yeah, go ahead.
Which is the point I was going to make in terms of I agree. I mean, I state my case earlier, right? But I understand and I agree. But again, it's how you tie them in. And I was about to ask the question, well, what do we maintain as sacred even to the tourists, right? Because we have to be careful about how we tie it in, because if we might ask the tourists them and they're going to say, well, yeah, we like the parade and the music on the road and nobody decibel level of the truck them too loud. And next thing you know, coming down in the policy is that you can't have the truck them be on a certain thing, or the pan is too much a noise, and then they want to move all the pan away from, so you have to be careful about how because many times you see and you hear what amounts to me to be an over-pandering to what they feel the taste of the tourists will be. And while I understand the importance of taking that into consideration, as Jamie just asked the question, what are they coming to see? Right? Because if what we're trying to do is give them so much of them or what them comfortable with in we, is that us anymore? I mean, where is the attraction,
Yeah. So let's take some questions from the audience. Yes, come to the mic.
Just in the context of the tourism talk there, right? Now, we are local tourism, all right? The whole carnival product has not been viewed as an industry and studied in that way, right? Because there are many opportunities for locals, and it's supposed to be an active process for the year, daily, right? But we need a studied approach to make it work. For example, you're talking about panyards, all right? Underdeveloped, underexploited, and there are many possibilities. For example, shows for school children. How many steel barnyards having shows as a ongoing activity? Music classes, other types of classes. In other words, it could be an institute even beyond carnival. Business activity, training, music, self-development, shows for the communities, uh, other investments that generate funds, forming cooperatives where the members now become empowered as owners, contributing to the financing, not only dependent on government support. And if that is developed fully, not even in the context of foreign tourists, the potential is enormous. But that kind of mindset doesn't exist. Thanks.
The mindset exists because that exists, what you just spoke about. It may not be throughout the entire country, but there are a couple of panyards, steel barnyards, who have cooperatives, who do exactly what you're talking about. Schools, they have youth orchestras, whereas the component is about the younger ones. Not only just learning to play the steel pan, but they travel too. They go on tours as well to represent the band. The cooperative exists in about 3 to 5 that I know of yeah. But you're right. But also what boils down to it, what it also boils back to my point of capacity building. Not all the steel barnyards that you have people who have the ability to retain and to, what's the word I want to use? To manage, thank you. To manage without training. Yeah?
So I just want to jump in. One of the things that IRKS irks me is the area of how we have not taken advantage. And I'm going down a road you started there. The Carnival Museum just started an opening and so on. And I'm still trying to understand. 9/11 happened, and I went to 9/11 museum and watch how they just convert a disaster into something that I have to take a ticket now to get to go 5 o'clock this evening, because the lines are just incredibly long. And I'm saying, I saw the same thing in Venezuela. They had a mud museum where when they had that large mud slide that came out, and they converted it and made a museum out of it. I'm still trying to figure out in Trinidad why I can't go to a place, a pan museum, and ask for a recording of the winner from 1970. And it, those are the things for me that need to be added in the discussion to start talking about what I call the support products, those things that would add value when people come here, not just for research and so on, but you have loads of people, right, that come to this country that can certainly benefit from those kinds of things. And that's why I think the state has a role. Just to say that the private sector is big. They gave a building for the citizen, but now they have to continue with not only state funding, but also other private people to get it.
And the point you're making there is important, not just for other people, but for us, right? So the Carnival Museum is for us.
For us.
Right? So we need to record those histories and those stories and those kinds of things for us, because there are a lot of us who don't know those things, right? All right. Yes. Mike. 2 questions. One here, one there. Oh, Sonia. Sorry, I didn't see.
Can you go to the
in my white. What do you see as the role of regional carnivals in this whole discussion about the carnival contract? Because there have been efforts on the part of the NCC in the last, I guess, within the last 3 years or 4 years, to discussed the regional carnivals, but from my observation, it seems that the regional carnivals that are successful are the ones where the people took the lead. So how do you see that factoring in? Because everything that has been discussed seems to be about the big carnival events in the sort of centralized areas of carnival. But if it is that there's this discussion about people being the people of Trinidad and Tobago, not the tourists, being the primary nurturers of carnival and the primary recipients of that nurturing, how do the regional carnivals factor in?
That's a key.
Go ahead. Good question, Sonia. I am convinced that crop over is different to us. I am convinced that what happens in Jamaica is different to us. The way I see what happens in Grenada is also a little different. So yes, we do have, in some cases, imitations of Panorama and Calypso, what have you, even as far as Notting Hill and La La La. Okay, my apologies. Yeah. What's that? Okay. Yeah, no, I think that there can be stronger collabs. I think that would be one way. I think that, for me, would be one of the things that, I hope I'm answering it, if that's what you mean. I think there should be more collaboration, yes, in terms of cross-sharing, yeah. I'm not sure that's what you're asking, huh?
You have Blue Devils in Carmen.
Right?
You have Carnival China.
Pretty much. But before,
So what I was really
Oh,
referring
regional in Trinidad. Oh my God, I'm
There
with
we
you.
go.
Sorry
So
about
you have
that.
Blue Devils,
I went
you
to
have
the other.
Carnival,
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
Trinidad and next year, who have
Yeah.
developed organically from maybe
Yeah.
family projects, community projects. They
Right.
become bigger now, all right? And is there a role for them in shaping the carnival in the way that the contract is useful to everyone?
Yeah, I'm glad for that. So now I'm with you. Now I'm with you. Regional as in Trinidad, yeah. For me, I think that's a big thing because already people do use some of these areas, these carnivals, as satellite areas for people to go to. But I think I'm coming back to the state. What I saw when I read about the Bolivia experience is the government took it upon themselves to say the traditional elements that have religious and spiritual meanings, we want to make sure that continues while these parallel things happen with the bikini and the Rio de Janeiro type carnival. And I think that is something I think the state should say they become a part of what we're going to offer for the people and also for visitors. Yes. I'm a strong believer in that. I think that should be something that becomes, whether you want to call it the traditional or the heritage carnival, I don't know whichever term, but I think that's important, yes. So with that, Sonia.
in response to you, Sonia, of course they have a role to play, right? That's one. Two, it comes back to two things: capacity, social media, marketing, funding. Three things. Telling your stories, right? The media tends to focus on the cities. It is very city-centric, right? So I remember somebody told me once, just build it and it will come. Just do it and it will happen. Just do it and your people will reach. So you were kind of you mentioned, I think you mentioned, you said you found the strongest ones were the ones led by people themselves. Let them do it. But what they would need would be some funding. So they will need support in many different ways. And again, not only government, because there are entities that are based in the different regions that can more than do things like that. And I think some corporations actually do help when it comes to carnival. It does exist. NCC does have satellite here. Yeah, right. So the role is just as important, even more so.
I think one of the biggest problems with regional, and I come back to it again, one of the biggest problems with regional carnivals in Trinidad and Tobago is funding. Because I could speak for the San Fernando City Corporation. I mean, I work together with them very closely. And one of their biggest things is money. They have no money, and artists don't want to take part in competitions because they don't get paid. Bands, costume, masked men don't want to play mask because they ain't getting paid. The bands and it's just a ricochet. It's a trickle-down effect that just goes from one down to the next, and it comes back to funding. So I think that we really need to look at, and I know Mr. Shaq will come back at me again, but by the end of the day, right, Mr. Shaq is you I think about,
No, but I agree with you from that perspective when you talk about the regional carnivals, because I have had personal experience with that where, San Fernando, Superior, you name it, the practitioners are going into these regional competitions, right? And I'm just dealing with competition
and they're spending
perspective.
money.
They're not only spending money, they have no idea what a simple thing as understanding the price structure for the competition that you're going in. And I'm just speaking in terms of competition. However, what I want to say too is the regional carnivals to me could be a very important resource in terms of maintaining the traditional aspects of our carnival. Not to say that they should only stick to that, but a lot of times you find that in the regional carnivals, that's what they gravitate to, right? Because a lot of these regions would have been where a lot of those carnival expressions would have originated, right? So you find they have historical connection to these things. Right, and so yes, preservation and cultural inheritance, I think that is an important part of it too. But again, lack of policy so that you know what I mean? Because again, sometimes the regions don't know how much money come in, when the money come in. They want to try to do their best. The corporations want to try to help, but they're shooting in the dark. And so that again, it comes back to that fundamental thing has to be sorted out in order for those things to be positioned better,
And the other problem is that people don't want to sit on the committees in the regional corporations because they are the ones that are going to get licks. So they are demotivated. So because they're demotivated, they don't plan properly.
Correct.
Right? So it comes back to
It's a really scaffolding effect because it starts at the top in terms of governance, right? So it starts there, and then there's a trickle down kind of scaffolding effect into the communities, right? And if we elevate regional carnivals, we fund them properly, we build capacity, something almost like Best Village, what we did in the 70s and so on, right? And you give people autonomy to run. And we also give, private sector autonomy to invest and so on. I think we could do something because a lot of it has to do with ownership, I think. So in the early days of Laventille Steel Band Festival, I was on the steering committee. And the first couple of years, we went all along the Eastern Main Road and got money from little people, right? The bar, the corner, the corn soup lady, etc., etc. And when we were finished, we took out a full-page ad and thanked everybody, right? And that helps with ownership. Sometimes we think that we need a big pot of money, but you really have to get people involved. But the work that it takes to do that, to mobilize, to get people engaged and involved, is hard work. Who's going to do that? Right? As opposed to just getting $100,000 from government and you start to work. The ownership of the carnivals have to start from the bottom up. And I think if we do that, we'll be better placed. This gentleman has a question.
Okay, but before Mr. Kamara, just spend one. So I think communication is a very, very important issue as well. Because you have to be able to engage artists and communicate with them. Because I believe people want to do things, and you can get them to do things at reduced cost, but you have to talk to them. You have to be honest, And they have to-
Relationship
and they
building.
have to come back to the point of trust. Trust. They have to trust you. You know, they have to trust that if you promise them something, that you will deliver on it. And you're not bullshitting them. Right?
Yes, thank you. I would just want to focus on what I call a golden opportunity which has been given to this country. That is the declaration of World Steel Pan Day. Somehow I am of the view that we have not given sufficient thought to the possibilities which we can enjoy by taking advantage of that day. Not only are we the inventors of the steel pan, but World Steel Pan Day has in fact shown us in no uncertain terms about the internationalization of the steel pan. So it means, therefore, that we have been given the opportunity to make full use of the steel pan for our benefit by having that kind of relationship with the world. And I want to make a recommendation that we have some think tank exploring the opportunities which we could enjoy by taking advantage of that World Steel Pan Day. Thank you.
Any comments on that? How do we use that opportunity?
No, I mean, I'm endorsing everything that he said. I mean, I think now is a time, again, I have to go back to the people who have to make, and in our case, we have a body that's existing already. Pancho Negro is there. So they will have a role. But again, I think between them and the forgive me saying it, but the government from every angle possible need to support these initiatives. And what you're saying there has real power from a touristic yeah, kill every time you do that. Oh, okay. Yeah. What's your hand going up? I know what you mean. Yeah. So yes, I do agree, Doc, that there's some value in the recommendations, and I think that also needs to come in to the discussion in terms of policy. I'm going back to that because I think if government or all the bodies are serious about creating policy, I think it will be a good guiding part. And the last thing I just want to throw in, going back to Sonia's point, I think the same thing that happened in Tobago with the Heritage Festival, pulling all these festivals together, maybe is a good template to look at how we can take those regional carnivals and marry it into some kind of, I don't know, festivals of communities. I don't know, I'm just playing with words here. But I think that's an excellent idea and something we should really think about. Yeah.
A road trip. You know, Robert Young had the Doja store, where you go from one carnival to the next, one regional carnival to the next. Killer.
Hi. I'm going to do something I don't like to do in step up to the lights. I like darkness. I'm afraid of the lights. I'm going to do something I don't like when people do in conferences. Not really a question. The idea with the 3 power structures. This is something that's been on my mind when you travel to quote unquote first world countries, right?
you get the benefit of everything they put in place for their people. It's not meant for the tourists. But because the people have these things, as a tourist, I benefit. And I think if we think of Carnival, the three power structures, not necessarily in a linear fashion, but in a cyclical or circle fashion, at the center is the people, then the state's involvement, then tourism if they want to come. But the reason people always came to Carnival is because we was doing we would think. In terms of hope, there's this quote I just from James Baldwin, and I'm going to insert where he says right. I'm going to insert Carnival and see if it makes sense. You have Carnival in order to change the world, knowing perfectly well that you probably can't, but also knowing that Carnival is indispensable to the world. The world changes according to the way people see it, and if you alter even but a millimeter the way people look at reality, then you can change it. And that's my hope for Carnival. That's what I look forward to every year. In some teeny way, we might change something in the world. We won't see it for 20, 30 years, but it might happen. And okay, well, there's only two things because I don't remember the third thing.
That's your contract with Carnival, Keela.
Yes.
Right, that's your Carnival contract. Well, it's Baldwin, it's Jimmy. So, yeah. Any other comments or questions? Right, Mike. We take one more question
I
and
just
it's
want
time
to
for
support the young lady's proposal, the people at the center, right? Now, we have a top-down approach to doing things, right? We need a concerted effort, not only reaching out to the stakeholders at Carnival, well, the people are the main stakeholders, right? Going to people and find out what they really want, what they want to do, how they want to do it, and giving that a lot of priority, because there's a lot of power in that, and you are alluding to it, right? At that ground level there, reaching to the people, but it calls for a lot of engagement, it calls for a lot of work. You need people to go out, you need people to, it has to be systematic, and not just talking with them and that's the end of the conversation. It needs a lot of seriousness, a lot of commitment, it needs a lot of things. But if it can happen, and there's the commitment and the effort and the work, the possibilities certainly can materialize.
and trust. Remember, the trust quotient in Trinidad and Tobago is very low, right? So we have to think about doing all of this good work, this work about change in an environment that is not high on trust, right? Very cynical, very what you want, as Tony Hall used to say. Was he angle? Was your angle? Or somebody always have an angle, right? Were he coming by me for that for? That kind of stuff, right? Yes, one question.
Hi, good night, everyone. I've been to the three conversations, and I just want to remind us who government is in terms of the true definition of what government is. And also, two, I like the conversation about resource mobilization and thinking about a different structure. Despite what your politics is, one of the things I always say is there are several ways to raise $1 million, and it's just asking 1 million people for $1.
Indeed.
Darling, that sounds really good.
Yeah. Well, that's the structure we did at Laventon Selvon Festival, and it worked. Yeah, but it's the harder thing to do, right? One last question I have: does the festival require competition? Shaq, this is your question to be relevant and valid.
Does it require competition? Yeah, it's interesting that you asked me that question, because the benefit of competition for me personally, because a lot of people don't know, I don't really like competition. Unfortunately, however, and I'll tell you why I agree with you with that, it's because, especially in my sphere, unfortunately, the pinnacle, or at least what is seen as the pinnacle of that calypso expression within that carnival space, is the competition stage. My first Dimash Grand Finals 2010 and first Skinner Park appearance, the late Lutalo Masimba had to talk me into signing up for the competition. That was my first year in Kaiso House, and I had no interest in being in the competition. right? And that went how it went. As I say, he talked me into it. I came to the tent one night to meet most of the form full out, just waiting for me to put my signature and that kind of thing, right? And so I went through it, no expectation really, putting my best foot forward as I always do. And first Skinner Park, first the Mashgra, which is when people really started taking notice of me that and subsequent the Mashgra appearances. But for me, I continue to keep it in the context of it is the space and the time and the avenue when people pay the most attention to the Calypsos and the Calypsonians. Therefore, I utilize that space to make my statement. That is my personal thing now. Because trust and believe, I know all the things to say and sing and how to say and sing them to not end up in problems with judges and the string pullers behind the judges and all them things. I know all how to do that. However, my personal decision is, as long as I am in this space, I am going to represent as much as possible the way I understand it, the real ethos of this thing, which is to continually speak to that power structure, to challenge it. You know what I mean? And that is my personal thing. Other people might take a different approach. So the answer to the question, does it need competition? I would say to an extent, because I see competition as, especially for younger practitioners at the junior level and so on, it really focuses your energy and your and everything and sharpening them skills in shortest space of time, right? But and so developmentally, it could help that in a very acute way. But I see that as working to a point, because for me, personally, I would much rather that there is a space and a time that is as equivalent as that competition stage, that we're outside of that whole gambit. That is what I would prefer.
So you know I'm the wrong person to ask if competition is important. The answer is definitely yes. But one thing I'd like to say is when Shaq was introduced tonight, right? You introduced him as, let me see if I can remember, 20 times in the semi-final, 10 times in the semi-final, and 5 times in the Mashgra. No, I didn't know that. But when you said it, I was like, wow. You also introduced him as a monarch in South, in this, in that. All of those were competitions that has made Shaq the man that he is today. And has created a profile. Sorry. Not made you the man. Hold on, sorry. I'll take it back. It has created a profile for you.
I agree.
It has created a profile for you that stands out now on the national landscape, right? Competitions, I think, are very important. Now, let me just say one thing. The music of Trinidad and Tobago promotes Trinidad and Tobago all over the world. If the one thing that you could take out as a tourist element that promotes Trinidad and Tobago is its music. Where does the music come from? The music comes from competitions. Where does it start? Somebody sit down in the home and say, oh God, boy, I want to enter the soca monarch, you know. Am I write a song? Or this, or chutney soca, or whatever it is, right? And it starts there. It starts in the communities. They get together. They talk about it. They go into competition. The competitions are very, very important. It has changed people's lives. I have seen it personally, which is why I said when I got involved at first, it was about business. But when I saw what it was doing for people and for artists, you know, yesterday we had a prize given for CSM. And someone said in 2015, they had an appearance fee of $100,000, which they won. And they started building their house. There's a guy who won many, many years ago. He came second. He won $40,000, and he took the $40,000 and bought a car and started running a taxi. And he made money. And these are the stories that you get coming out of these things that have changed people's lives. So it's very important.
If you ask me,
Go ahead, John. Go right ahead.
your question is if I believe in competition. Yes, I think our audiences have what I call, we have been so tuned socially and psychologically that I do not see us getting away from competition. As a matter of fact, we compete even when there is no competition. And that's a fact. If you brought 4 choirs to perform here now, they are going to perform as though they're competing against each other. It's just how we are. So I support it. Yeah.
I just want to make a comment about competition just before. Carnival is cyclical in nature. I think you alluded to that earlier, right? But if we go back in history, competition is what, for the Argos newspaper, the first competition. And that was the first step into commercialization.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And also, right, just before we and folks, we are going to close now in 2 minutes. Also, there's a criticism that competition fosters sameness, right? Because they've become very formulaic. So, I think that's something that, so innovation, okay, wait. So listen, if I think action, it is a formula.
No. Doc,
I'm
I
just
have to be
saying.
honest that over the years, and I don't know if you're all studying it like me, but musically, that thing has moved. Listen, what Marshall was doing, what Voice did, they all move. It keeps changing. It's like an amoeba. I'm telling you, it's changing,
John,
all the time.
Question: you feel the same way about Calypso?
So,
Huh?
Do you feel the same way about Calypso?
No, I don't feel the same. Hold on, I don't feel the same way about Calypso. But soca,
okay.
yes,
Yeah.
it's morphing
and,
all the time.
And some people might argue that the music, the soca music, has evolved in a way because there has been less competition in soca.
That is actually the point I was just about to say.
Right?
Something.
Yeah, but the soca monarch coming again.
Well,
if the soca monarch comes again, well, we'll see where that goes with it.
You're already saying it.
That's fine. I'm saying to you, however, that as far as my wheelhouse where Calypso is concerned, it definitely is encouraging sameness. And I'll tell you why. And this is part of the reason why I try to delve into imparting the tenets as I understand it of the composition and creation of Calypso. Because you see the nursery where that is concerned, that is sorely lacking. Right? And so what you have happening is, because George says something just now that I want to push back on a little bit. He may be right in the sense of a lot of practitioners may sit down and say, hey, carnival coming thing, I want to enter this competition. That has never been my mindset or my motivation. I get it, and that's what I'm saying. And that is part of the reason why, at the risk of tooting my own horn, why so many people seem to think, I shot the song differenter, the music differenter. And the difference is not just about the musical components, it's about the mindset. It's about the approach. So I hear you in terms of, and I am not negating because, as you say, we have been tuned to and conditioned to that. But in response to what you're saying about the soca music evolving, the soca music evolved outside of the competition space. It outgrew the competition purpose. But
no, I say that because, to be quite honest with you, for the last 15 to 20 years, I make it a serious thing about creating medleys of soca. I do it all the time. And I've seen the changes harmonically, rhythmically, melody.
But I am saying to you, John, I agree with you. I am saying to you, competition was not responsible for that.
No, I never said that. I never said. I thought you were arguing.
No. He's saying, so you all are actually agreeing.
Well, we agree here then. All right.
And I would also make the case for formulaic in terms of the masquerader, and kings and queens and so on. All right, one question, and folks, we have to go. Go ahead.
Good night, everybody. Now, what happened is I have observed over the years that carnival seems to be outgrowing the infrastructure we call border Spain. And now you have bands lined up for 2-3 hours or the remaining on one spot. I am of the view that the local, the regional carnival is lacking. You go in some of the areas, you hardly see in a band and that kind of thing. And my idea is, why can't tribe with its 4,000 or 5,000 in town not spread its wings or its branches to some of these regional communities? Because at the end of carnival, some of the people in those areas, all they see is a little devil, a little sick fighting something. But the real carnival, the beauty of the mass remain in Port of Spain. And I'm saying if you have bands like Tribe, that could attract people, right? Why can't we encourage them to spread their wings, to go to some of these regional places and let people play, right? Tobago is a case in point. When Tobago has its carnival, they can ask Tribe, oh God, set up a little thing here for the people to play with you all, that kind of thing, because it is too limited as it is now that Port of Spain is the scene of the action, even the results. Ban of the year, Port of Spain. It has to spread because we taking it outside. Tribe and all the other bands have bands on the outside, people seeing that, and Trinidadians not seeing it. So I'm saying, let us encourage some of these bigger bands to spread their wings to some of the smaller communities.
What you have to understand, I hear what the gentleman is saying, but what you have to understand is that people are paying to play mass, and they're paying to play mass in town.
Where the eyeballs are.
Right. They want to jump up in town.
On the stage or in the soca drum, not in Caribbean.
Yeah.
Where the cameras are.
And that's the basic problem.
Okay, so folks, it is about that time. It is the witching hour. I want to thank our esteemed panel. I wanted to say, right, in closing, we've had a really good, rigorous discussion. And I wanted to close with asking you to make one closing statement, and that would be, what if there were one thing you'd want any of the actors to do, people, the state, private sector, what would that be? How would we renew, revise, reinvigorate our contract with Carnival? If there's one thing that you would recommend, what would that be?
I think on all levels is getting back to the why. I said it earlier. Somebody said earlier about a model, I think it was Killer, thinking about the model as cyclical with people at the center. That sounds nice, right? But we have to have people with the will to do so. And so, because we can't stick our heads in the sand and not understand that our carnival is also heavily politicized, right?
Carnival of the state.
So I'm saying it has to get back to the why. That all these traditions, everything has to build from there. The foundation is the only place we could build it from, and renegotiate it, re-engineer it from. So for me, it would be to get back to the why. However, that getting back to the why, I think if we had to look at those 3 pillars we talk about, I think the people would be the most important pillar inside of there, because, and that is it is most important, but it's also most challenging, because I think that from that people perspective of understanding the why to people, and they had to go that far back, just go back to COVID when we couldn't do what we wanted to do. I think that is where now the influence and the pressure could be exerted on some of those other pillars to understand that this is what we want to build this thing on, and this is how we intend to renegotiate this thing. I think that is a starting point.
I want to focus on the people. They need to ask, they need to investigate, they need to inquire, they need to demand programs, they need to find the knowledge, they need to go to the sources of knowledge. Yeah, and demand that they be made aware, that they be able to tell stories, right? Cultural inheritance, we go back to that phrase. And I want to leave us with about 9 keywords here from tonight. Identity, inclusion, income, inheritance, cohesion, community, you could use that, either way. Participatory, and a challenge. The challenge is to find the balance. To find the balance. And our favorite word for tonight, I think, trust. Trust.
I think collaboration, bringing together everyone, the ones that could make the difference. But the problem in Trinidad and Tobago is that when you bring 20 people in a room, right, and you sit them down and you say, let's talk carnival, 18 out of the 20 people wondering in the back of their mind, I wonder how much money I could make from this. And that's part of the problem. And although I started tonight saying that it was about money when I started, it's not about money now. For me, it's not about money anymore. It's about the culture. It's about the people. It's about the artists. It's about the communities. It's about the impact that this has had on lives. And I've seen it firsthand. And it touches me. And every time I do that particular show and I stand on stage and I look at what is going on, and I'm telling it and my paws raised, because that's how I feel about it. I've become very, very passionate about what I do. But collaboration is very, very important.
I only have one word, and the word is communication between the state and the actors. I think if we get that right, if we get that to the point that it's bottom up, and then we create the decisions here based on that, I think we'll go a long way.
Great. So I want to thank this panel for a really interesting conversation and to close with some words of my own. So festivals are sustainable when they are dynamic, when they are open to the world, when they are sophisticated, innovative, and have a solid reputation over time. So let's renew our contract with Trinidad and Tobago's Carnival to ensure that it remains this sustainable and beautiful gem for ourselves first, and that we can share with the rest of the world after. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Burke. And now we go into closing very quickly. I'd like to introduce Dr. Douglas Wade Brunton, who is a lecturer at the LCCS, to give a vote of thanks.
Evening, everyone. I feel like the clown on the stage trying to sweep up the spotlight after this series of conversations. So my task is very simple. It is bittersweet to offer the vote of thanks on this, the last panel of the You Be Outside Under the Trees Carnival series. And I'd like you to join me in thanking the members of the panel, Mr. John Arnold, Mr. George Singh, Ms. Jaime Bagoo, and Mr. Shah for their contributions and giving us a cause for hope. Let's please give them another round of applause. But this series would have been nothing without you, our audiences, your interest, your comments, and your questions. So let's take some time and applaud ourselves. This series started as an idea about 8 weeks ago, and it has taken a lot to get it from an idea onto a stage with panels and such, and it has taken efforts of a number of people, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank them. Dr. Burke, Ms. Deborah Matthews, hidden in the dark in the back, Mr. Sean Samad, Dr. Clarissa Granger, who's not with us this afternoon, Mr. Omari Ashby and his crew, Mr. Roger McFarlane, let's give them that round of applause. And we would like to thank TTT for for joining us for all three talks. You didn't have to do it and you did it, so thank you. We're not done. So we're done for Carnival. But if you're interested, and we think that you are, because some people have come back 3 times, we continue this series in the new semester in September, and Carnival will not be the focus. Stay tuned to our social media to find out what our first topic is, and we will be running the conversations as we did. So thank you once again for making the time and taking the time, and it's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brunton. Now we have special presentations for each of the panelists, and we're going to ask Mr. Samad to first of all start giving a presentation to Mr. Shak and thanking him very much. To Ms. Bagoo. To Mr. Singh. And to Mr. Arnold. Bravo to you all. Please serenade them. So this is the end of the UE Outside series. And as we started, it was so lovely to hear all of the talk about competition and PAN. And of course, we are going to end with the national. All right.
Right.
Okay. So we reintroduce as we started as we end with some engine room to keep us going till September. Keon Batiste, we welcome him back to give us the engine room to take us through the rest of the year and on to Carnival 2025.
Before Keon starts, come back, Mr. Murray. Come back.
Okay.
So, this is, of course, everybody knows Mr. Murray. He's the head of the DCFA, but I also wanted to say a special thank you for him, because every time we come up with crazy ideas in our heads, and I call him and I say, Mr. Murray, we want to do so and so, we could come by here, we could do this, we could do that. He's always very supportive. The 2 departments,
yes,
we work really well together. So I just wanted to thank you.
I love the crazy ideas. Yes, bravo.
Thank you.
All right, we don't have